Just who are these guys out there for our San Antonio Spurs? What is up, San Antonio Spurs fans? Welcome to TSR Sports. The San Antonio Spurs went 1-2 this week versus the Raptors, Celtics, and 76ers. However, this was a pretty rough week as the Spurs had numerous players enter health and safety protocols, and there were some players out there I had never heard of. We'll circle back to that in just a little bit. I'm going to do a recap and report card of the week while I'm doing so. Drop a comment down below what you like about this week, what you didn't like. Hit that thumbs up if you like, support the channel, and subscribe for more Spurs content. Just a real quick aside, that Celtics game, sorry, I wish I called that. That was one of the most chaotic endings I've seen in a game in quite a while. The Spurs ended up winning. Unfortunately, couldn't quite get it done against the Raptors, the 76ers. Embiid was just way too much for the Spurs to handle last night. And let's get into our report card for our players. Starting off with, welcome back. After missing some time due to health and safety, DeJounte Murray. Thought he had a good week overall. 24.5 points, 7 rebounds, 10.5 assists, plus 3 steals. Shooting percentages were up. Now, he did average 5 turnovers, but I think he was just trying to do a little bit too much out there. Maybe he didn't trust the guys that were out there with him last night, as there were quite a few players he wasn't used to starting with or rotating with. That being said, thought this was a good return week for DeJounte Murray. And I happen to notice DeJounte Murray right now is number 1 in the NBA in steals per game. But not even showing up in the top 10 Western Conference guards, so not getting any love. I'm still doing the NBA All-Star, hashtag NBA All-Star, hashtag DeJounte Murray voting. So guys, we at least got to get him in the top 10, don't we? Anyway, moving right along, Derek White. Derek, I thought overall he had a good week. Was hitting his threes. 36% for Derek White now is really good. Gave us 14.5 points per game. Was also doing his defense with a steal plus 1.5 blocks, but he is now out for health and safety. Dang. Up next, Devin Vassell. Devin kind of had an odd week against the Raptors and Celtics. He came out on fire, was lighting up. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he had double-digit points in both the first quarter of the Raptors game and the Celtics game, but then he just kind of slowly disappeared in the last 3 quarters. So I'm not sure what happened. Overall, though, I thought it was still a good week, averaging 16 points per game. Oddly enough, he didn't get a steal. But still, good week. Well, he's out for health and safety now as well, so that's going to be a reoccurring theme, by the way. Up next, my man, Keldon Johnson. He had a bad good week because he was really rough against the Raptors, and then he bounced back against the Celtics, but now he's in health and safety as well. This is a bummer. Up next, Jakob Poeltl. Jakob's been very solid, you know. Good week for Jakob. Even hit 44% of his free throws, which is up for him. Gave us a double-double with 14.7 points, 10.7 rebounds. Where's the block-ups? Only 0.7 blocks for the week, but still, Jakob, I mean, he's been steady for all the criticism he gets, and some people are saying he's not good enough to start. He's a bench player. I think he's good enough to start. I do think Jakob Poeltl is a top 10-ish center in the NBA, but he's not top 5 and definitely not top 3. And I think when you see him go against those top centers like an Embiid, like a Jokic, you see what a difference there is between top 10 and top 5. It's just there's a really big drop. Still, for his contract, he's outplaying his contract, so keep doing what you're doing. Up next, K B D. Okay, that's not a thing, but I just popped in my head so whatever. He had a good week. You know what? 47% from the field, 6.4 points per game in his 23 minutes. And KBD, he's just steady. He's just steady. As a spot starter that has a small contract, this year and next year, he's making about $1.8 million per year. So as a guy that was expected to be a role player off the bench, a third stringer, he's done pretty well for the Spurs. And of course, he had that game where he went off against the Lakers for 30. That's an anomaly more than anything. But still, KBD as a spot starter and a bench player has really filled that role very well. So props to him. Up next, Jacques Landale. While his shooting percentage was down a little bit this week to 40%, overall I thought this was a good week because he got playing time. He got 17 minutes per game. Fortunately, he has that ugly -10 there, and actually the whole bench is in the negative. But still, he's going to make mistakes. He's not not totally maybe adjusted to the NBA yet, and the constant shifts in lineups and rotations may be messing him up. But overall, I thought it was a good week. And Spurs fans, last night we got the double J. We got the Yak and Jacques connection. We have both our bigs out there. Did it really make a difference? I don't know, but Pop was trying something different. It was at least fun to see our modern day but nowhere near as good version of the Twin Towers. No disrespect to Jacques and Yak, but we just cannot compare them to David Robinson and Tim Duncan. It's not fair. They're not to that level. Up next, you had one chance and you blew it. Bryn Forbes gets his first start of the year last night, and he was doo-doo. He was 3 of 14, and overall, this was an ugly week for Bryn. And I like Bryn. I'm sorry, Bryn, but I got to call it like I see it. I can't sugarcoat it. 26% from the field, 14% from beyond the arc. He is here for one reason and one reason only, to score. He gives us very little on defense. And when he's giving us very little defense and very little on offense, he's a liability on the floor. So Bryn, hopefully this is an off week. He's a shooter. Shooter's got to keep shooting. And hopefully he gets it going next week. He's going to have plenty of opportunities because we got 5 games next week. We'll get back to that in a moment. Last but not least, for his first time on here, Josh Primo, the youngest youngest Spur to ever start with the San Antonio Spurs at the age of 19. And overall, kind of getting thrown into the frying pan, and he's going to get into the frying pan a lot next week. We'll circle back to that. He averaged a career-high 20 minutes per game, scored a career-high 15 versus the Raptors, and overall didn't seem overwhelmed. Yeah, he's going to make mistakes at this young age, and he had some foul trouble last night, but overall I liked what I saw from Joshua Primo, Optimus Primo, the Premonition, Thremo. We've got 100 nicknames. One thing I don't like seeing is people already calling him a bust or a scrub, or I'm seeing this talk a little bit in the Spurs community, and I'm like, the dude's a teenager in his first season. Are you expecting him to go out there and score 25 points per game? He's going to make mistakes. And some people are like, well, where's the hype machine you had, Rich? You're not so hyped about him. I am hyped about him. He's just not getting opportunities to play. When he's getting opportunities, he is showing us moments, and we got to give this kid time. I do think maybe he could be a very good player in the NBA. Maybe he'll be our next star. I don't know. But at 19, just turning 19, let's not beat up on the kid. Let's not obviously go too big into the hype train. But you know what? Primo's setting another little small record for the San Antonio Spurs, the youngest player to ever start for the San Antonio Spurs. So that's something. So, let's root for the kid, but not, hopefully not too much pressure on his shoulders moving forward. For our guys off the bench, or our normal starters who are out. Doug McDermott, out all week for health and safety. He'll be back sometime next week. I think he'll be in reconditioning, so he might be available tomorrow against the Nets, or at least Monday versus the Knicks. I don't know. Lonnie Walker returned from health and safety, played last night, had 13 points on 5-11 shooting, so, for his first game back, thought he played well. Tre Jones. Not a good week from Tre Jones, at least from the shooting stance. He shot only 25% from the field this week. Really rough week for Tre Jones. And now he's out with health and safety. We had the 4 players go down earlier this week with health and safety. Keldon, Derek, Thad, and was Tre Jones part of that? We have so many guys in health and safety, I can't remember who I did a video on who else. Derek, Keldon, Devin, and Thad, and then Tre Jones all of a sudden is now on the list too. I don't know when that happened, but last night I was watching the game and they're like, Tre Jones is out. I was like, what? So what the heck? Even Pop actually in his interview said, I don't even know who half my guys are. He was kind of trolling, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I don't know who some of these guys are when we get to the end of this recap. Zach Collins, is he back next week? Does anybody know what's going on with Zach Collins? Because I sure as heck don't, Spurs fans. You guys are asking me, and I'd like to give you an answer. I have no idea. They said after Christmas. Well, we're 2 weeks post-Christmas, and we're short-staffed now, so we could use him. Thaddeus Young did not play all this week. He's in health and safety. He may never play a game again for the San Antonio Spurs. Wish him well if that's the case. Joe Mama. Joe Wieskamp, he had a career-high 13 points versus the Raptors. Didn't do much last night, but, he was draining threes against the Raptors, and that was fun to watch. Everybody's favorite named player, Devontae Cacok. 4 minutes last night, 2 points versus the 76ers, so he might get into the rotation more next week with so many guys being out. And the who dis, the I don't know who that is of the San Antonio Spurs, Tyler Johnson, Jalen Morris, Anthony Lamb. All in 10-day contracts. None of them showed me anything for me to be impressed about, except I will say congratulations, you are playing for the San Antonio Spurs. You're living a dream that I could only hope to have. Just to play 1 minute for the San Antonio Spurs would be like an OMG moment, and I would cherish that for the rest of my lifetime. So you know what? Not these players I want say they're due to don't belong in the NBA. They are doing something that all of us can only dream of. So congrats to them for getting to play with the San Antonio Spurs. And hey, if you surprise some of us, or surprise us with one of these guys turning out to be something special, that's great. But I really don't know anything about them, so I can't comment too much. I will say this team right now has 2 Johnsons and a Cacok. Anyway. My Spur of the week, this is kind of a tough one because so many guys only played 2 games. And yeah, he had a lot of turnovers, but I got to give it to DeJounte Murray. the scoring, the passing, just having El Capitan out there and helping us get the win against the Celtics. And I do think he tried to do way too much against the Sixers last night. And the Sixers also were focusing on stopping DeJounte Murray. I mean, when we only have two starters out there, Jakob Poeltl's not a threat to score from anywhere outside the paint. And so they really keyed in on stopping DeJounte. And I think that definitely contributed maybe a little to the turnovers. I do think he was trying to do too much, but I get it. Up next, wow, next week, my fellow Spurs fans, ladies and gentlemen, what a bad week to be in health and safety with so many of our guys. Because we have 5 games next week with 2 back-to-backs again. The Nets, the Knicks, the Rockets, the Cavs, and the Clips. And the Nets, I believe, are pretty much at full strength. They won't have Kyrie Irving because the game is in Brooklyn and New York is New York. My plan for next week is I'm only calling 3 games. The Nets game is right there in the middle, early on a Sunday, 12 p.m. Sunday streams generally don't do well. Sunday afternoon streams do terrible. It's the last week of the NFL. There's a lot happening with the NFL, so I'm going to flip-flop back and forth between whatever NFL games are on. If the Giants are on, I'll watch it. Or I'm sure they're going to get bumped for a game that actually matters and has playoff implications. So I'll be flipping back and forth between the Spurs and probably whatever game that is. I'll probably be watching 90% at least of the Spurs game, though, and just casually watching a football game. Then when the Spurs game is over, I'll watch the football game. So I won't be calling that one. Then I will not be calling the Cavs game. Those are weekend games, Friday and Saturday. I don't want to do a back-to-back on the weekend. And moving forward, I've said this in another video, but if you're still here and you haven't caught it, I still plan to cover the Spurs like I'm doing. You guys wanted the recaps, and while the views are down when they lose, I'm like, I still like doing them too, and that should be the focus of the channel, me having fun. And for those of you that do enjoy them, whether we win or lose, that's great. For those of you that only enjoy them when we win, hey, that's cool too. But I'll still be doing the recaps and then streaming 3 games a week. If the Spurs have a 4-game schedule, I'm just going to choose the 3 games that interest me the most and do that. I'm really focused on working on my music channel and recording new music. And making a video for that music takes time. And music has been my first passion, it always has been. And my dream my dream would be, to be honest with you guys, if you're still around and just now rambling, it would be to monetize that channel. Not to say I'm making money from it. Money is not the goal, but to be monetized would mean that I'm getting paid to make music. And to me, that would mean I'm finally not an amateur musician. I'm a professional musician, and that would just mean so much right here for me to say that I accomplished that. Even if it's just 1,000 subscribers, even if I just get over a little over 1,000 and kind of stay there for the rest of my life on YouTube, just to say I'm making a little money making music. I've accomplished, that's the last part of music. I've played live, I've played in a church, which was just, that's a whole different level of, accomplishment. And so TSR Music. I really want to work on that channel this year. I obviously have a lot of time in the summer, but that's, really my dream would be to make that channel. Honestly, if you said which channel would I want to get to 100,000 subscribers in the next month, I would pick the music channel. I would. So if you stayed around this long, thank you so much for listening to me ramble and talking about, my goals and aspirations, I guess. 5 games next week. It's going to be a busy week, Spurs fans. Maybe we'll see Zach Collins next week. I can only hope. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Until next time, and as always, go Spurs, go!